Hi, this is a new Nigeria with Wale Oluwade. This is your current affairs program where we critically examine the strategic issues bedeviling Nigeria's developmental aspirations and boldly offer practical suggestions on building the Nigeria of our collective desires. Today's episode promises to be engaging and exciting. My guest is already here to assist me in doing justice and also give depth and clarity to the topic of our discourse. As always, it's going to be evidence-driven, honest, bold, and a no-holds-barred conversation. So get ready as we begin in earnest. And now, let's get on with it. Today, we're looking at 2023 Economic Agenda, Resolving the Oil and Gas Sector Debacle. The recent series of discoveries of mind-boggling quantum of crude oil theft made public by a private security firm, Tantiata Security Services, and global outrage amid federal and state governments' inability to provide services to Nigerians and the excruciating mass poverty ravaging the country. After signing the controversial, mouth-watering 48 billion pipeline security contract with the federal government, this private security outfit, in the glare of media cameras, exposed key illegal underwater pipeline and platform connected to the 48-inch Trans-Forcados export trunk line in Delta State, from which bunkerers directly siphon cleaned crude oil into ships and exports overseas. This recent discovery is like the earlier of an illegal 4-kilometer pipeline also attached to the same Trans-Forcados export trunk line, discovered by the same company's operatives. The SPDC, that's Shell Petroleum Development Company, operated for Forcados terminal in Ogulaga, has a nameplate capacity to export 400,000 barrels per day of crude oil. Now, experts' assessments claim Nigeria has lost between 500,000 to 750,000 barrels per day progressively for about a decade. A rough estimate puts amounts lost daily to about 65 million naira, $65 million daily. If you put that, some experts also have said in 10 years, that comes to about $40 billion. And in the last 6 years, about 29 billion US dollars. Now, a few questions come to the mind of analysts concerning this. Number one, how is it possible that this level of economic brigandage and sabotage was even conceivable, let alone executed for almost a decade in the first place? Secondly, why is this just being discovered at this material time? 3, importantly, who are the perpetrators of this heinous economic act of economic sabotage, and will they ever face justice? And finally, how do we ensure that this similar situation never repeats itself in our environment? So we'll take this short, these are some of the issues we're examining. We'll take this short break, and when we return, we'll get right into the conversation with my guests. Stay with us, please. Welcome back from that short break. My guest is already here, Mr. Igo Akerega. Good afternoon, Igo.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Very well. Good to
see you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Now, a brief introduction. Mr. Igo Akerega is the President Civil Liberties Organization and also a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. He's been an editor with the Guardian newspaper for several years. Welcome once again, Mr. Igo.
Thank you.
Now, let's get on into our conversation right away. I'm sure you're following goings-on in the oil and gas sector. In your view, the unfolding saga concerning discoveries recently, what does that, what goes on in your mind when you saw all of that?
Well, I was not entirely surprised. The reason being that these discoveries were simply a revelation by the same actors who have been within the oil and gas sector. Those who are making the discoveries are not angels from heaven or from outer space. These are also Nigerians who have been very active within the environment where these pipelines are. So when these discoveries come up, of course, the only amazing or maybe shocking aspect of it is that the level of theft of the oil and gas, the level is humongous, is shocking. where you find pipelines running 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, some 50. I just returned from the Niger Delta yesterday, and you could hear testimony of people, the kind of activities that had been going on. So these small artisanal refinery, these small ones they do in drums, that the Navy and the Civil Defense were setting ablaze, those weren't really the kind of theft that we are talking about. Apparently. The hemorrhage was coming from agents of the IOCs, the international oil companies, and of course the NNPC and other very senior officials of government who, of course, you remember security forces, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, Civil Defense, the police, DSS, everybody was having a field day in this whole gamut of theft, even as revealed by Government Ekpemukpolo himself, and Aston Polo. He said that he's not afraid to die. He's not scared of anyone. That he was going to bear it all, and he named all the quote unquote the so-called oil tips that we have.
Good intro, Igo. Is there any way you can? I mean, let me also put it right that I mean these are allegedly, because nothing is nothing has been prosecuted. Yes. No one has been prosecuted or not convicted yet. Now, is there any way you can rationally explain these discoveries or give the federal government and the NNPC the benefit of the doubt as not being complicit in what is going on? Because, mind you, it was discovered also that recently that the NNPC had invested 50 billion naira in setting up a central monitoring center, so that they have a bird's eye view of the entire pipelines of the NNPC, across Nigeria. Now, so the question now becomes, with this investment and this technology, how come this is able to go on, not for a month, not for 2 months? Because if you say, okay, technology shut down maybe for a couple of weeks and before they fixed it, this happened, we may understand. But we're talking about 9 years. What do you say to that, Igo?
You see, when agents of government talks about putting in place technology to monitor, safeguard, and provide any form of security, I do not believe and trust them. Now, if the NNPC has put in place a central system to monitor pipelines in Nigeria, so how come the theft persisted for this period of time? Is it not the same money that is put in turnaround maintenance that you don't see anything? Nigeria is a case of the more you look, the less you see. Government tells you they have put billions of naira here, and that very shortly we are going to find the results. So they raise your hope only to just smash it on the ground, nothing happens. That is what has happened with this so-called NNPC central monitoring system that they put in place to monitor the who are involved in the massive stealing of Nigerian oil and gas resources are not aliens from nowhere. They are Nigerians who have been able to construct massive pipes over long distances to steal these oil assets that Nigeria has. So it's an interesting revelation. I would have expected that by now, beyond just uncovering these pipelines, 30 persons would have been arrested. And there are people who constructed these pipes to steal the oil. Who are these individuals? What is the role and duty of the police, the civil defense, and the DSS in investigating, security threats to Nigeria as a country? Because when you steal the nation's assets, that is a direct national security threat. And I thought that the DSS would have moved in by now to take people in, and then we'll be talking about prosecuting people.
I like what you touched on now about prosecution, arrest being made. Now, generally, because when these discoveries were made, initially the alarm was raised when the contract with the private security firm, Tantiata, was made public, 48 billion naira security. There was an alarm, it was the topic of discourse generally across media houses. But I would have expected that when these discoveries and the level, the scale, the gargantuan scale, that I expected the federal government to have set up a judicial probe of inquiry. Heads should have been rolling, or should have rolled, and arrests should have been made, and all of that. But there is nothing of such going on, at least publicly. What do you say to that, Igo?
See, nobody is going to get arrested in a congregation of thieves and criminals. Who will arrest who? You know, the government is responsible for the management of national assets and resources. And under the government's watch, there's pillaging and leakages and hemorrhaging of these resources. And the government tells you they don't know who is doing it, who is responsible for it.
Sorry to butt in. This is beyond pillaging and looting of resources now. This is economic sabotage. Yeah. Like I said, the word I use is the scale. This is, I mean, our OPEC quota for daily production
which
is 1.8.
Yeah, 1.8. Ordinarily it should be 2 million.
It should have been actually to be about 2.5, but let's say 1.8. That's the OPEC, you know, benchmark for Nigeria, daily output. Half of that, because expert reports show that what has been lost in the last number of years, decade thereabouts, is between 500,000 barrels per day to 750,000 barrels per day. Yeah. This has been going on into private hands
for years.
So this is beyond a director in the civil service or someone stealing 10 billion. We're talking of dollars, billions of dollars. Yeah. Some estimates put it at 40 billion in 10 years. Some put it at 29 billion in 6 years. So, like I said again, Igo, please help Nigerians. I expected a judicial commission of inquiry to have been set up. I expected arrests to have been made. You know, and this matter shouldn't be something that will have just, because gradually it's petering out. Yes,
that's see, let me just weigh here. You see, yes, what you have said is the right thing to do. My worry is that does the government have the political will, the wherewithal to do it? And whether this government likes it or not. It didn't just start with the Buhari government anyway. Absolutely. It must have started, you know, way behind.
Yeah, of course, if they're saying 10 years, 10 years is way beyond the Buhari's
maybe from, of course, don't forget that when Yar'Adua was in power,
there was a gap, there was a lacuna.
The movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta and other military groups were very active. At that point, oil quota, our quota at OPEC dropped to about 700, 800,000 barrels a day until Yar'Adua weighed in, granted amnesty and all of that, and then the thing moved back. Now, the militants, you know, I enjoy some kind of palliative to the Presidential Amnesty Program, PAP, and the quota, the quota rose up. Now, between then and some years back, I think some individuals who have been benefiting from this whole gamut of economic sabotage simply devised a different strategy.
A more ingenious.
Yeah, more ingenious, you know, more
method.
Dangerous.
Very
dangerous.
Exactly.
What happened is we constituted a clear and present danger to the survival of Nigeria as a country, and that is just what it is. And I would have thought that a serious government by now, if it's in China and some country, people will be facing a firing squad. You know, people will be apprehended, tried publicly, and given the maximum penalty or punishment that the law ever prescribed. But of course, in Nigeria, as you said, it's petering out. The whole thing is now about Tompolo, even hailing him that is discovering some of these pipelines. So last month, a ship was said to have loaded about 1 million barrels of crude. It got up to Equatorial Guinea and so on before it was apprehended and reverted back to Nigeria. So that tells you the scale. That ship that loaded, who loaded the ship? Up to now, no, but we've not heard anything about it.
Like I've heard, you know, in the media, every ship has a register.
Yes.
And then, I mean, you're on the Lloyd's register. I'm an insurance expert, you know that, you know. So movement of every ship, you know, is tracked, you know, globally. Yes. So, and a ship don't go into your territorial waters without your Navy knowing, without the ports management system knowing, without the MASA knowing. So, are you now, does it now seems like there is a network?
No, it's terrible.
It's terrible. Igo, some have alleged that this spate of discoveries are being made now at the twilight of this current administration's tenure to cover its tracks, especially with the strange, if you consider that a tanker, an oil vessel, was arrested coming into our waters to steal, and was arrested. We saw it on live television. And guess what? You saw it. The whole Nigerians saw it. He was burnt. So this conspiracy theory out there that, oh, this is being done now, all these discoveries, everything being done now, is being done to, as it were, cover the tracks of whoever are the ones perpetrating this, especially because the administration's tenure is wrapping up. What do you say to that?
Yeah, but even if it were, yeah, well, it's disgusting that the army, I remember the chief of defense staff issued a statement, saying, giving reasons why the military had to destroy that vessel. And that, that is the practice, standard practice, that is not the first time that the military is targeting assets belonging to thieves,
yes.
But
sorry to butt in, the counter question is, so if you go to a court of law, verdicts in the court of law are not given on hearsay.
You need evidence.
Yes.
But that's what we are discussing here, that the government is not interested in apprehending and prosecuting anyone. So you just destroy the evidence, destroy the assets, and everybody goes away, So why
these are weighty allegations.
Yes, why do you destroy? Why do you destroy evidence?
Exactly.
Anyway, why do you have to destroy evidence?
While I am easy to,
because somebody bought the vessel. There
were personnel arrested on board that vessel.
Exactly. So did they destroy the vessel along with individuals on that vessel? No, I'm sure they arrested them. So where are those individuals? Are they being prosecuted? If you want to prosecute them, what is the evidence? Where is the ship? Where is the vessel?
And if you go to a court of law and you keep saying the vessel, and the judge says, okay, so where is the vessel?
Exactly.
Can we go inspect the vessel? Can we send people to go inspect the vessel? And then you say it's destroyed. Okay, Igor, we'll take this short break and then we'll come back.
Okay.
We'll take this short break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up with Mr. Igor. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now, do you have any hopes that these activities will stop and that the perpetrators will ever be brought to book?
Well, I have hope that we can nip all of this in the bud, we can stop it. But whether the perpetrators can be brought to book, particularly under the current dispensation, I have my doubt that they may never be brought to.
Why so?
Yeah, I have my doubt because the people who are perpetrating this, see, this is massive, large-scale oil theft. Don't forget, the only product that Nigeria sells to the rest of the world to earn forex is
at
oil.
least 80% of our foreign revenue earning is from crude oil.
Yeah, it's from crude oil. So if we are unable as a country and as a government to secure our price commodity, it's like an egg to us. If we're unable to, then what else can we secure? So, and listening to Tom Polo, he has made it clear that it is people in government, security agencies, and all of that are involved in this thing. So that is where my hope dies. If you entrust your jewels to somebody to keep for you, and the
family heirloom, the crown jewel.
Yes, and the person still runs away with it, what do you do? And you don't have the courage to bring the person to face justice. That is the dilemma that we all have as Nigerians. But again, Nigerians should raise their voices against what is happening. It appears we have all been I don't know the right word to use now. It's like we have all been mentally shackled, such that the sense of reasoning to challenge even the most indecent assault on our sensibilities, we are not raising our voices. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, should not run after the small thieves, the Yahoo boys and those ones. They should run after the big thieves, grab them and bring them to face justice.
Good point you raised. Just that I would like to correct that EFCC should go after all criminals.
Okay, yes, I know.
Yahoo boys' activities have given us a bad. They've given us a bad reputation globally.
You are right.
Look at what's the other guy, Ramon Abbas, Hush Puppy.
Yes,
his activities and all of that. Anyway, so we have enough security apparatus to deal with this. What you said, and I agree with you entirely earlier on, is that is the political will that is lacking, and that brings me to the final question. In the next 10, 20 years, what are we going to show to our children? That since 1958, that crude oil was discovered in Oloibiri.
That we have been stealing
that we have done with the money. Nothing to show. So we're hopeful that next year we'll get a responsible government that would quickly put these things to nip this thing in the mud.
Very ugly
situation. So what's your recommendation to Nigerians about voting, and then to whoever wins, what's your recommendation on how to deal with this situation?
Well, we must vote very wisely next year, and then for for Nigerians, we are not going to elect foreigners to run our affairs for us, you know. So Nigerians should learn to put their money where their mouth is. What we are talking about is oil. I'm from the Niger Delta myself. I feel very sad. If you go to Warri, I just returned from Warri, as I said just yesterday. There are no roads there. There's no infrastructure anywhere. Wow. There's no national commanding infrastructure that we can showcase to the rest of the world. Wow. Is it the Abuja Stadium that is rotting away? For the colossal
wealth that has come out from the ground.
Zero roads, we have nothing. Wow. We can't get our electricity right. As I drove down here now, there's no fuel, no petrol anywhere, no kerosene. Diesel is on a high price. The cooking gas, I understand, is even scarce now. Mm-hmm. So we cannot just manage. We have developed a great incapacity
in less than
to manage.
What's your recommendation?
The recommendation is that Nigerians should vote wisely, put the right persons in place, and when this set of Nigerians do come in next year, I appeal to them very passionately that they should be patriotic enough to deal with these issues, plug all the loopholes. And I listened to one of the presidential candidates of one of the political parties actually speaking to the issues that the first thing to do is to plug all of the leakages, invest massively in agriculture so that Nigerians can feed themselves. And so once the leakages are plugged, including these oil assets, and once there's no more theft, as it were, we can then warehouse the resources and use it for national development and grow our assets so that our people can benefit from their God-given resources.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Igo. This is a continuing conversation. And I'm sure we'll be back another time to look at it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Good
Have a nice day. Thank you. And that's the end of the interview segment. We'll take this short break. And when I come back, I'll give my closing statements. Please stay with us. Welcome back, and here are my closing statements. To most Nigerians, crude oil discovery has been a curse rather than a blessing. With well over 1.5 trillion in revenues since 1958, the nation has nothing in concrete terms to show for this colossal sum, while other natural resource-rich nations have used theirs to develop a fully diversified economy. Nigeria, however, has frittered its wealth away in riotous living and mindless corruption. Most shockingly, our refineries have deliberately been rendered prostrate in spite of huge sums expended in turnaround maintenance. To compound matters, almost half of daily crude oil production itself is being stolen by a faceless cartel and the money is diverted for personal use. What then is the way forward? Now, the recent passage of the Petroleum Industry Act 2022 is a most welcome development. However, the attainment of its intended objectives must be hinged on the following recommendations, or else the PIA will amount to a worthless piece of legislation. I must say that the event where the President and NNPC echelon gathered and did a name change with much fanfare was a mere charade. It is akin to a car with a knocked engine, whose owner, rather than get a new engine, keeps spending money on glossy paint to whitewash its body. And here's my recommended solution. If Nigeria must derive maximum benefits from its oil and gas endowment, it must adopt the NLNG business model in the complete privatization of the NNPC and its various subsidiaries. The NLNG is a Nigerian business entity, but with diverse ownership. It was established in 1989 to take full advantage of our huge gas reserves. The ownership comprises Shell Gas, who owns 25.6%, Total Energy Gas, 15%, AGIP/ENI, 10.4%, and Nigeria through NNPC owning 49%, bringing the total to 100%. Now, its first LNG shipment from Bonny Island in Rivers State to France in 1999 began its odyssey of a steady gas exportation. Now, 21 years after it began operations, the NLNG has 11 billion in installed assets. It has generated revenues of 108 billion, and it has paid $35 billion as dividends to its shareholders. 49% of that, due to Nigeria, is about 16 or 18 billion US. It has also paid $9 billion in taxes to the federal government. And lastly, it's got $15 billion in feedstock gas in reserve. Apparently, from the foregoing, the NLNG is a resounding success story. I dare say it is the exception to the rule in our environment where almost every business entity owned by the federal government has either failed or is performing woefully since independence. In fact, some, such as the Ajaokuta Steel Company, never even took off to begin with. So the NLNG is a good outlier and positive role model. What strategic factors are responsible for the NLNG success story? Number one, ownership. The ownership of the NLNG, as I earlier mentioned, is diverse among 4 different entities. Nigeria, through the NNPC, owns 49%, while 3 other international oil companies own the remainder, and critically, controlling stake, as earlier stated. If Nigeria had ownership of the NLNG, it would most likely have become like several others before it. Most notorious are NITEL, NEPA, Nigerian Airways, Nigerian National Shipping Line, etc., etc. The second strategic factor contributing to its success, proven competence. The 3 other owners are foreign IOCs with demonstrable and proven capacity and competence to manage and operate the specific business. Shell BP, for instance, is perhaps the oldest crude oil company in the world, and its managerial capacity and competence in the industry is beyond question. Now, as presently constituted, the federal government, through the Ministry of Finance Incorporated and Ministry of Petroleum Resources, still owns 100% of the NNPC. Therefore, no amount of rebranding, name or personnel change will suffice for our oil and gas sector to function optimally, therefore, and deliver positive results as its peers in other countries do. The federal government must relinquish controlling interest to experts with proven and demonstrable capacity through a transparent and open bidding process. And this has been long overdue. Remember, change requires action, and positive change requires positive action. I believe in a new Nigeria, and it is possible. And those are my closing thoughts. Now, that's the end of the program today. Remember to follow me on my different social media handles. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch this particular video and others there at your convenience. Drop your comments also. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.